Well, good morning. My name is Andrew, and I'm one of the members of the staff team here today. And we're in our second message about good grief. And the reason why we're taking some time to unpack the topic of grief and loss is because as a church community, we've experienced this a bit. We've said farewell to a number of saints who have departed, but also grief and loss are just part of life as well. So it's a great topic to be engaging with and seeing where God's at work within our midst. As I think back to my younger years as a child, there are some decisions that I made. I just think, why did I do that? What was I thinking? And one of those times was I was in primary school, and my mother used to make me these beautiful sandwiches with fruit, very healthy lunches, and send me off to school in a paper bag. Very nostalgic. And the problem was I didn't always like a Vegemite sandwich, or didn't always like what I was given, or the fruit, and sometimes they ended up staying in my bag for a long time. And so have you ever seen a banana in a bag for a month? Not a pretty sight. And so I had this problem that I wanted to not upset my mum, but I just couldn't leave that lunches in my bag indefinitely either. And I was a bit nervous about putting them in the bin at home because my mum might find them in the bin and ask what was going on. And so I decided that as I walked into the house, there was this area under the house, probably about 1 metre high to the right. And my little child brain thought, that's a great place to put my lunches. And so I'd walk in, and I just quick sort of throw under the house as I walk into the house. And this went on for a few months. There was a growing pile of lunches in paper bags with all sorts of mold and stuff growing under the house. And I thought this was fine. No, not a problem at all. Until my grandmother turned up. Now, she had a particularly good sense of smell. And so she walked into the house and goes, something's not right here. I smell rotten banana. I smell rotten orange. There's something's off. He talked to my dad about it, and he's also got a great sense of smell. And so he smelled, and sure enough, I was found out that I had been disposing of my lunches in the wrong way. And so I finally confessed, and we had a good chat about one of those parent conversations with the young man. Put me right, and I asked for forgiveness, and I went under the house and cleaned it up and threw it in the bin. Now I tell that story because sometimes that's a little bit like what we can be like with difficult emotions in our lives. We sort of carry them around. They're a bit awkward. They're a bit smelly. You don't know what to do with them, and so we decide to get rid of them, to hide them away somewhere. But that doesn't actually solve the problem. What happens is that they express themselves in different ways in our lives. We are emotional beings. We like the good emotions, happiness, joy, contentment, all these things. They're like lollies in our lives. We love them. But they're more difficult things, the more challenging emotions. We can struggle with them sometimes, can't we? We can either ignore them, or we can let them control us and make us do and say things that we ever thought we would. And sometimes I've found that Christians don't always have a good approach to this. We can have these ideas of, we'll just have faith in God, just trust God, and that we don't engage with our emotion. We can have very much a focus on our head, but we forget to engage with our heart. Or we can see emotions as wrong and evil and then feel guilty for having them. But you know what? The Bible presents a very different picture than that. Let's look at some Bible passages around emotion. So this is a picture of what God is like. He said, the Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, but abounding in love. And this passage here from Nahum is quite confronting. The Lord is a jealous and avenging God. The Lord takes vengeance and is filled with wrath. The Lord takes vengeance on his foes and vents his wrath against his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger, but great in power. God is good. All that God is good. But he clearly has strong emotions and strong feelings at times. When we see Jesus, we see a very similar picture with Jesus. In fact, many of his miracles were actually activated through emotion. Let's look at this passage in Mark. Then a leper came to Jesus, begging on his knees, if you are willing, you can make me clean. And moved with compassion, Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. And immediately the leprosy left him and the man was clean. Jesus, shortly before he was crucified, was in the garden praying, and he said to his disciples, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." Well, that's a really difficult place to be. Sit here and pray with me. Keep watch with me. And then a passage in John which simply says, Jesus wept. And then we see the same thing when we look at biblical leaders in the Bible. These are not robots. These are real people with real emotions. We were looking at Nehemiah recently. Nehemiah gets some news that Jerusalem is not going well. His people are suffering. And he simply says, I sat down and wept. Wept. And in the Psalms are filled with emotion. The psalmist says, "Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am in distress. My eye is wasted away from grief, and my soul in my body also. For my life is spent with sorrow, and my years with sighing." Psalm 39. And so we have the idea that emotions, God has emotions, Jesus has emotions, we're made in God's image, we have emotions. And so how do we understand and process them in a healthy way? Because you know what? Emotions are not wrong or bad. They just are. It's what we do with them, which is really important. And so I'd like to present a very, hopefully simple but helpful model today about how we deal with difficult emotions. And I'd like to particularly also acknowledge the work of Asher Morrison, who's a Christian psychologist who's helped inform this thinking today. And so here are some quick ideas about how we deal with emotions. I'm not going to go into too much detail with them, but I will a bit later on. The first one is to recognize our emotions with kindness, number one. Second one is to settle your feelings. Number three is to listen to what they are telling you. Might be a radical idea, isn't it? Listen to what they're telling you. And number four, be attentive to God's deeper work in our lives. So I'm going to unpack these a little bit later on, but I'm actually in a moment going to invite Grant up to share a bit of his testimony of how he's grown both spiritually and emotionally through some very difficult times and God's work in the midst of that. And as Grant talks, just be thinking about this model. Be thinking about, as he shares, where does this fit? How does this work? And then we'll come back and revisit it in a minute. So I'd like to invite Grant up. Let me pray for him as well, because it takes a lot of courage to share some personal stuff. And it's not easy. Oftentimes in church, we have this mask on. Everything's okay. But we really take the mask off. We're real. That's difficult. It's also incredibly powerful. Let me pray for you, brother. Father, thank you for Grant. I thank you for the story you've given him. Thank you. It's a unique story of your grace. And I pray that as he shares it, you would encourage us and help us to learn how do we work through difficult emotions and see your presence and your power and your work on display. Yep, unto.
I want to sit. I'm just going to be on with this. So cool. Okay, so hi, my name's Grant. For those who don't know me, hello. I have been in this church or part of this church, or been involved in some aspect of this church for about 35 years. 15 years married into the church with my wife Tess, who's Grant and Robin's eldest daughter. And I've also come through, the remaining of the time has been my journey through Hunter Christian School. I went there from K to 12. And probably a bit of a story that people don't know is that my adopted sister actually came through the children's home with Mr. and Mrs. Saunders. So I've had a long history here, both in the middle of it. I was on youth leadership. I ran youth for a number of years here too, and I was a part of the church plant. So this has been my church for a very long time. Anyway, and part of that, part of that journey, and a good 12 years of it, has been probably some of the hardest things that I've had to go through, not just myself, family. And I look back on it now, and I just can't explain the love and the grace of God and what he's done over our lives. And so I'm just going to introduce something that he's been teaching me over the last 10 years. And just to give you some context, the reason why I said last 10 years, for those who don't know our story, in 2017, I should do more context. I have 4 children. Andrew, now for those who don't know Andrew, he's the lovable boy about half my height, looks like me, unfortunately. And he's got autism. Yep. Oh. Anyway, Andrew is my eldest. I then have my second daughter is Jane. I have a boy called Isaac who passed away at an hour and a half old. And then I have a rainbow baby in Jane, which you met today. Anyway, so you can understand why I'm up here. There's been a journey. And it's not just the journey of Isaac's passing, it's been the journey of Andrew and Neve and even myself, as we've all got autism. And the grief, especially with Andrew, of things and dreams that everyone wants for their kid. And you see it every day as you get older. And you know that things that you may never see or he'll achieve. And I don't know unless by the grace of God. And the thing that God's been teaching me through this is his peace. Not just his peace, but to step into his peace and to remain in his peace. And I want to give you this. It came in 2020, this picture, just to give you an idea of what it's about. It was just after a time where we went to this prayer ministry for Andrew, and because there was some stuff that was happening with him, it was becoming more clear that the issues that he was going through were not neurotypical, and it's been quite a difficult journey coming to grips with that. And he gave me this picture, and it was a picture of a storm. I will read it because it's easier. Sorry. I'll get a second. Second hand? What do you mean? All right. Anyway. Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to give you this picture. It's been something that I obviously have had since it's been something has come up as I've walked through what it means to walk in his peace in relation to Andrew and Isaac. But it's very much inclusive to everyone. The picture you gave me was a cyclone or a storm. When you look at an image of a cyclone, right? When you look at an image of a cyclone, at the center of it is its eye, right? And the eye of the storm, we keep getting told, is actually very calm, right? Many people, you read stories, many people get tricked into thinking that the storm has passed when the eye comes over. And obviously that's why authorities say, do not go out into the eye of the storm. Understandable. That as I sit here, the funny thing is God gave me that picture and he said, Grant, that's where I am. I'm at the center of your storm. And it's my peace that's at the center of your storm. And so, stupid text. The thing is that regardless of who we are, we're all going through storms. But Jesus is always at the center of it. He's not out of it. He's at the center of it. It's why when you read Psalm 23, it says, Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Because what? It's not if, it's when. We all go through it. It doesn't matter whether it's a grief or the loss of somebody, or it's the difficulties of a job where you feel like you're getting hammered by someone or you're having to go through something that you don't want to go through. He's always at the center. And it's our choice to step into his peace and remain in it. Now, what does that look like? And that's part of the journey I've had. And I guess I'm going to give you some context. Like, this was the end piece, finding out what this story is about stepping into his peace. What does it actually mean? What are we actually doing when we step into his peace? And I've got, it's a bit convoluted. Sorry, I'm going to jump around a bit. But I'm going to read something of a diary entry. So, like I said, my son, we found out in 2017 that my son, Isaac, had a condition where his skull didn't form. We found out at 13 weeks. Can remember the day, 13th of April, 2017. And throughout that week, I got stories of people, telling me words and all that. Anyway, on the 20th, I got to a point and I wrote this. I'm gutted. I don't know what to say. I want to punch you, shake you. Why? I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know what to think about healing, asking you shall receive, vision, interpretations, imagery, any of this. Lord, I don't know what to say or think or feel. My emotions were just raw. I had nothing. And this is the profound thing, even in saying this, it says, all I know is that I need you to get me through it now, tomorrow, and every day after that. I can't deal with all these visions and words anymore. I just want you. And then I read this and I thought, oh, geez, this is a poem I wrote really well, and I'm crap at English. And then I realized it was a song. And I'll read the song. God gave me this song. He said, from heaven you can hear, I know you are drawing near. As I worship, held within your love, the winds and waves will come, but I will stay here. I lift my hands to the heavens. Hear my heart surrender. Tell my soul again, Lord, you are Lord of all. And know that, and though the seas are raging, you will speak and tame them. In you I find my rest. You are in control. Through the valleys I will trust. Your spirit is enough to keep me walking. You guide my every step. Speak life into me again. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. I lift my hands to heaven. Hear my heart surrender. I tell my soul again, Lord, you are Lord of all. And though the seas are raging, you will speak and tame them. In you, I will find my rest. You are in control. I will trust in you only you. No one can add to your perfection. You are the beginning and the end, more than I can comprehend. There is no one like you. No one. After that, I wrote this. Now, keep in mind, probably about 15 minutes ago, I was wanting to punch and swear and do the whole thing. Lord, I submit myself to you again. No matter what happens, whether you choose to heal, take my baby home. I don't know where I got this, but this is where I will abide in you. You are in control. Lord, again, fill my spirit with your love and peace. And as clear as day, he gave me this. Grant, faith is your ability to abide in me and rest in the understanding that I'm in control. The hardest thing with emotions when we are dealing with God and doing it well is we are having to cede our control of our situation to him. And I got that, but the thing, that's about the control. But the other part of it is I went, what the hell does abide in me? I didn't know it was a verse. I didn't know anything. And it's just so I obviously what I did, Google it, abide in me verse. And for those who may know it, it's actually the story of the vine. And so I started to process, what does it mean to abide in me? Abide in me is to accept or act in accordance with. That's what abide stands for. Jesus promises that if we abide in him, he will in us. It's not the other way around. It's why when I said step into his peace, his peace is there. It's our action. It's our choice to step in and remain in him. But what does it look like for us? What does it mean to abide? Well, the first thing I wrote is obviously that thing I said, we need to look at what we are actually accepting. And what we're actually accepting when we choose to abide is God's unconditional love. which actually means, and what does it make it unconditional? It means he has the right to say yes or no in our lives. Regardless of our emotions, he has the right to say yes or no in our lives. That's what unconditional love is. It's not just the ability to say yes, but it's also the ability to say no. It's why when I said, take my baby home, I prayed for healing. Don't get me wrong. And I wrestled with God, and it was frustrating. And trust me, swear words I can't even start with the amount of swear words I gave to God. The F word was dropped a lot. But the easy, and I guess so moving on, the easy part of our faith is to ask Christ. The hard part is the next step. That's where he starts to strip us of our flesh to become like him. Stepping into his peace, we are actively choosing to allow him to take control of our lives and our situation. Now, you might think, oh, what's wrong? But the joy of his control, unlike in our world where we lose control, when we lose control, it's like, When we give control to God, he provides us with a freedom and a peace that nothing else can give. You want to know why? Because he's in control. He doesn't promise that it's going to be okay, but what it actually gives us is an opportunity to see what we are doing in the midst of the storm, to see the carnage that's being laid ahead of us and actually walk in it in an honorable way, doing it well. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's freaking hard. And generally when it's hard, it's because he has to do, it's kind of like the pruning of the vine. I don't think a vine really likes to get pruned where it's living. You imagine getting your arm chopped off when you're alive. No, that's not fun. Right? And, sometimes when we give it over our control, we know we have to do it. We know there's stuff going in our lives and like, yep, put my hand up, we're going to do it. But there are other times where he has to do it for us because the state we're in makes us unfit for the calling or the anointing that he has placed on us. And I'm not talking about, go up and do a ministry or go up and do, no, that's a lot of crap. That's not what I'm saying. The anointing that he's telling us is calling to be like him on this earth. When we do that, we'll do whatever God calls us because that's where he wants us to be. Look at Joseph. How many times God gave him this calling and he kept on refining him through trials and tribulations to test him to see where he was wanting to be. David, look at all the fruits of our faith. And I'm telling you now, I don't think Joseph was going to be like, woohoo! But he was faithful to that. And so the thing I go when we step in our peace, we can't abide in him unless we have his peace. Because it's counterintuitive. Our peace, we can't step in and abide in him. We can't do any of that because if we haven't got peace with him, we're still dealing with our own crap in our own way. And let's be honest, we're bullheads. We're humans. We're bullheads. We stuff up. And there's a reason why Jesus died on the cross, because he knew that. So that's why it's an active choice. And it's not something that we do once. It's something that we have to do over and over and over again. Sometimes, and like I said, sometimes it might be a wheelie. Sometimes it's to the very second. There have been times with Andrew. Now, I don't know if you know him, but when he was younger, he was a Houdini. And there are times where in that Houdini's, I had no other choice. I wasn't just stepping, I was freaking running into his peace because I had no idea where he'd gone to, and it was stressful. And all I had what it allowed me to do, one, it allowed me not to get cranky at anyone else around me because of my stress. But it also allowed me to think clearly about what the hell I had to do at the time to make sure he was safe. His peace provides us a freedom to see things in the mess and deal with it healthily. And like I said, it's the ability to trust I've got one more thing, and this is it's more about Andrew. As I said, Andrew's got autism. He's not high functioning, although when he wants to, he can do a lot of things. Like at the age of 10, he knows how to put the washing on and hang it up when he wants to. He knew how to make a sandwich when he was 5 years old. I believe it was like, would you like bread with your peanut butter? He still know how to make it. But one of my constant things with Andrew is that where is he going to be when I go? And how the hell do I know that he knows God? And it has been a journey of this stepping into his peace and understanding what that looks like. And a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to tell this story. I didn't know, because he's nonverbal. He loves to sing. He loves to dance. You've seen him. He gets on stage. He does that. A couple of weeks ago, he goes to St. Dominic's Catholic College. And one of the things that the Catholic Church did, which I thought was brilliant, is they realized that people with disability, especially like Andrew, there's no program to take communion or the sacraments. And with the Catholic system, or whatever you want to call it, sacraments, as I see it, is that active choice to say, I believe in Jesus. And I had the joy of sitting through a couple of weeks, watching as they adjusted the story of what it meant to take the sacraments with him. And a couple of weeks ago, we went to, I don't know, the church, the main church, Catholic Church in Newcastle. And he took his sacraments. But the funny thing was, I remember standing there and they were doing the Catholic wording and all that. He had no idea the words. And they asked the question around, do you believe in God? And he didn't answer. And so I knelt down with him and I said to him, do you believe in God? And as clear as day, he went, yes. Do you believe in Jesus? Yes. Do you believe he died for you? Yes. Then I threw water and oil at him and did that. And then God said, I told you I've got this. To finish up, the joy of that story of that storm. In real life, when you go into the eye of the storm and that, is that if we lose our peace, we get thrown back into the storm. And usually that's where we die. The joy of having a loving God is that when we come down, when we realize that we've fallen out of his peace and, fallen out of his peace and started to live our choice of lives, which I will be honest, I do it a lot too. Just ask my wife. This week has been a prime example of me stepping in and out of his peace. But the brilliance of God is that when we come before him and lay it at his feet and seek forgiveness, he brings us straight back in. It's something that's always there for us, but it's our choice whether we choose to sit in it, stand in it, and remain in it. I've got so many stories and so many things that God's talked about. 10 years is a lot have happened, but the key thing has been this story. And if you ever hear me talk to you, one of the first things I'm going to say to you, if you've got struggles, is, all right, where's your peace? You've probably heard me say it. And here, I think I said it when we're arguing. My first question is, where's God's peace? Where is our peace? Because we find where our God's peace is, then that's where the answer is going to be. Because we are actually letting God speak into our lives. And it allows us to deal with our emotions in a healthy way. Yeah. I mean, I can say this week's been a great week for it. Just to give you an idea of what I mean by it. So for those who don't know, I'm doing my Master's of Psychology. And this week I was finishing my last assignment. I actually finished it at 2:00 this morning. And it's been a 5-year period. But you can imagine the stress in my head of trying to do all that. Topping all that off, Tessa got hit in the head with a volleyball at school and was concussed. We also had a car accident. And Jane is going through stuff at the moment that means that our night's sleep is not good. And the irony of me, what I'm talking about is that there have been times this week where I've gone, God, I need your peace. And then God's gone, God, Grant, where is my peace here? You obviously didn't handle that well. Where's my peace? And I've had to both step into it or seek forgiveness and then step back into it again. So my challenge, I guess, in anything, and grief can cover anything. I'm not saying you're not going to go through it. We all go through that. But if we do it with God's peace, we've got a choice. We do it without it, and let's be honest, that's just crazy. Or we can actually do it with God in his peace.
Thanks, Grant. Sort of wrap this message up, and it's just really, really powerful things shared there, and great testimony. Really real and honest and raw. We're a work in progress. And so I just want to close with this analogy, and I found this quite helpful, and maybe you will as well. That our minds, our lives are a little bit like a bus. We're like the bus driver. We've got L plates on. We're learning. Disciples of Jesus, the word disciple actually means learner in the Greek. We are all learning. And we've got the wheel. And our emotions are like the passengers in the back. Sometimes there's some nice passengers on the bus. Sometimes there's some grumpy passengers in the bus. And they come up and they try and talk to us as the driver. Sometimes anxiety might come up and try and take the wheel. Anger, frustration, sadness, all these things. The thing is that only we can drive the bus, but our emotions think that they can. They want to try and take over. And so I want to link this analogy back to this picture. When those emotions come up, first thing we can do is to recognize them with kindness. Because remember, we're learner drivers. We're just learning. And we can recognize there's an emotion there. And how would you respond if a passenger came up and talked to you? You'd hopefully respond with kindness to them and try to hear what they have to say. Second thing is to settle your feelings. So if you try and talk to someone, you can do things which might escalate them, or you can calm them down. So what are some things you can do in your life that might settle your feelings? Calm yourself down. Calm that feeling down. Because if that feeling's out of control, then you're not in a good place. We can all do things which help us de-escalate and to be able to move things through in a healthier way. So calm that feeling down. First of all, recognize it with kindness. I'm feeling this. Actually, naming it helps you respond to it. Settle that feeling down. Second one is to listen to what you're feeling, that feeling's telling you. And maybe anxiety is there because anxiety is seeing something in the distance, and it's worried about what's happening, concerned that the bus might crash. And it's got a valid concern. So maybe you can actually learn something from that emotion, but you need to ask the question. Sometimes our head and our heart, out of joint, our head can suppress our feelings and not listen to what it's actually saying in a very unhealthy way. But real maturity looks like our head and our heart working together, and our head being a bit like a counselor or a chaplain to our heart, listening to our feelings. Why am I feeling that? What's going on at the deeper level? What's actually happening? What's really going on for me? And then the last one is be attentive to God's deeper work. So what's God doing in this space? And the cool thing about this bus analogy is, we're not there alone. If you're a learner driver, you've got the master driver there with you. And God's there with us in the bus through his Holy Spirit. And he says things like this. Fear not, for I am with you. And when you go to the deepest valley, be not afraid, for I am with you. Don't worry about anything, but pray about everything. And with thankful hearts, offer your prayers and requests to God, and he will bless you with a peace that no one can completely understand, and it will surpass all understanding. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give as the world gives. Don't let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. So friends, I hope that that's a little bit helpful for us. We all wrestle with this. It's all a journey. We're all learners. But you know what? God's also at work in our lives as well. And as we engage with our emotions and we're real about it, I think that's actually the place where God is working powerfully in our lives. So I'd like to invite the worship team up to close this service. And we're going to sing a song called Come to the Altar. It's a wonderful song that just reflects the idea of being honest and being real and coming to receive God's grace. And I'm also really aware that we've dealt with some pretty tough stuff this morning, and maybe you need some prayer. Maybe you just need someone to chat to work some things through. And so we'll have some people up the front with some little tags on, prayer team. These are leaders of the church or elders in the church who are happy to pray with you or just to chat with you about things, about what you're going through, and to minister to you, and so you don't need to go through that alone. So please feel free to come up the front after the service. People there you can talk and pray with. God bless.